You just posted something about the Bold community.
Yes. So one thing that we're doing is that for the first time, the Bold community will open its doors to everyone. And so in November, we're actually having a festival. It's an innovation festival. It's called the Bold Experience. And anyone who's interested in testing out innovations from all over the world is welcome to come. I'm really excited because I got to curate all of the immersive experiences, all of the things that people get to try. And I'm really excited because I think they're things that I'd never seen before in my life or experienced before, diving into the world of innovation and having exposure to global innovation. So I'm really excited for the city to be able to experience it.
What is the Bold community?
The Bold community is an international innovation network. It's powered by the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. It's designed to connect pioneers and people who are working on groundbreaking things all over the world together, but also to connect them to Austrian businesses and people who are interested in innovation.
What brought you to that? Why are you involved in that?
And so I've been working on it actually for the past 2 years. So I applied for a job there, very classic. And I'm the production lead. I was working on international events, but as well content and communication in terms of, okay, we built this community, fantastic team abroad, but how do we bring that into the Austrian economy? How do we make it relevant for Austria? And my job was a lot of that. So like Austria is creating spaces where pioneers can network and meet each other and come up with new ideas. How do we not only create that space abroad and show the world that Austria is interested in creating new things, but how do we bring it back for all of our companies in Austria? And that was basically my job for the past 2 years. And it's been a really, really amazing ride. I think just building something from, I didn't come right at the beginning, but it was basically completely different from what it is today. And seeing what it has become, and as well within the Austrian ecosystem, especially the past year, it's been absolutely phenomenal. Changed my life forever, I would say.
What was your life before that?
I worked at Teach for Austria. So right before that, I worked for Teach for Austria. For those who don't know it, it's an NGO. It's an international NGO that is under the Teach for All umbrella. So you have, Teach for All or independent NGOs all over the world working towards making equitable education. So what it aims to do is really taking people who would want to change education systems and putting them for 2 years in low-income schools, in schools where teachers don't really want to be hired at. In Austria, we would call them Brennpunktschulen, so schools where knowledge of German is really low, very high amount of not only immigrants, I would say, but maybe children who come from difficult families, and we try to put teachers or people who come from consultancy or have done really well for themselves basically and give them a very challenging environment to change the world, and they do that in those 2 years. And I was in charge of the branding, but also kind of the liaison between the recruitment team, so finding people who would want to do things like that, and the communications team, and finding out, okay, how do we communicate to the world that our program is not just about taking people who are not equipped to be teachers and putting them in schools, but as well, it's an opportunity for people who want to become CEOs, people who want to change the world, that they can do that right in the city, in a place that they might have never thought about, which is in schools, and change lives and really see the impact, I think was a really big thing, because I think a lot of times when we invest in something, or we think about, okay, we want to be successful or take leadership, or to become leaders or challenges, we always think that it has to be kind of this like building a company big thing. And yes, but I think a lot of what we tried to tell our fellows was that you can change the world one life at a time. And it's a multiplying effect, right? Like if you impact someone's life and you invest in them, someone who probably has never been invested in before, then they will impact somebody else's life.
When we first talked, you told me that you asked me, do I fit for this podcast because now I have Austrian citizenship?
Yeah.
Which obviously the answer is still yes, because here we are. But I want to know what happened again before this. How did you get to Austria? And what was your journey? How long you've been here?
So I've been living in Vienna in September it'll be 12 years, which is crazy because it will be basically half of my life. I'm 25, and I'm originally from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It still remains my favorite city in the world. But how I came to Austria is actually a very complicated but serendipitous story. I don't know. I always grew up knowing that I probably would want to live elsewhere for a while. And when my brother was 9, my younger brother, and I was 12, he got accepted into the Vienna Boys Choir. And everyone will tell you that I was way more into singing than my brother was. But good, I wasn't a boy. And so he came to Austria. My parents were not I think they wanted him to not like it so that he would come home because I think he was still 9. But at that time, my brother had really bad asthma, and living in Malaysia where the climate is not very easy for asthmatic people, he was like, I want to try. I mean, he was also adventurous, but like I think that was a big part of it, and it was something that we had never known before. Anyways, my brother came here, and I was really sad because I wanted to sing as well, and so my parents said that if I wanted to, I could learn German, and I was 12, and so I actually spent a year in the Black Forest in Germany learning German. And at 13, I decided to start high school earlier than everyone else. So at 13, I moved to Vienna, Austria, and went to the high school of the Vienna Boys Choir.
How did that happen? Because the way you just paraphrased it sounds impossible.
Well, you have to audition. You have to audition. Basically, they ask you to sing a couple songs, and then they test your hearing and all the things that you will think of how music school works. It's also very special because at that time, I'm not sure about now, it's the only music school in the world where they focused on singing. And that was what I was into most. That's what I wanted to do most. And it was... yeah, it's phenomenal. I don't think it's for the faint of heart. I think for sure not. But yeah.
What happened to your singing career or
Well,
passion and dream?
I actually wanted to pursue singing. I loved it because I think at the school we got really the opportunity not just to sing in concerts with each other, but as well with, the Volksoper, which is the people's opera. And I really wanted to do that. But when I graduated, because I'd started earlier than everyone else, I was 17, and it was just recommended that I wait a couple of years just because the female voice, a lot of people might not know this, but the female voice is primed or most optimal, I think, in your mid-20s. And also, I felt like there was also more that I wanted to do. And so my plan was to study politics first, and that would give me about 3 years until I was 20. And when I was done with that, then I would go back and try again. But life had other plans. And when I was in university and I studied political science, I got really involved in the student organization called ISEC. And that led to, one thing to another, like organizing my first big event at the UN headquarters and everything. And just, the music stuff, I think I always kind of grieved it a little bit. But it's also good to know that I have other interests as well. I don't think that's in any way a bad thing.
But do you do anything like either for fun or for pleasure or for hobby? Do you sing somewhere?
Yes, more and more. I think now I really enjoy, I mean, not right now because there's just too much going on, but like during COVID, I really liked writing my own music. I think it's how like I emote best. So it is very like vulnerable and not for the world to share. But also like I'm a Christian, so a lot of like my religious practice is based a lot in singing, and I have a lot of friends that we kind of do that together, like collectively, and it's really beautiful.
You just got accepted at
Yale. Yeah.
What happened there? So what are you going to study and when?
Mm-hmm.
And congratulations, by the way, that's huge.
Thank you. I start in a couple months, so in August, so right before my 12th year anniversary moving to Austria. And I will be pursuing a Master's of Divinity. So way before, people used to actually do Masters of Divinities if they wanted to like either be ordained, lead religious organizations, or if they wanted to be lobbyists for religious rights in Parliament, Congress, however your country built its government on. And today, I guess the same as well, but not but. And it's very interdisciplinary, or can be very interdisciplinary. So my goal is actually I can take up to about 50% of my degree in whatever else I'd like. And so I would really love to focus on the public policy part. I think also just going back to, I studied political science, but as well working at the Federal Economic Chamber for the past 2 years, I've realized that I really want to help like people and systems, and that's what I'll be doing. And I think it all just falls in line. I think I told you a little bit about like I worked in Teach for Austria before. I worked at the Federal Economic Chamber. I think they're all kind of things that I would like to think. I really like to help people and kind of like to think of how society can live with each other. I think it's very much in line with like why I study political science. And that's kind of what I want to work in or of when I'm done. I think one part of it, of why I want to study it, is because I think that there's no time like today that humanity is so separated from each other. I mean, I think that they were like in the past, but maybe like as different but as similar. I mean, as similar because of globalization, but as different in terms of there are a lot of maybe like radical opposites, a lot more needing of like maybe acceptance of diversity, may that be religion, or I mean for me like the focus a lot more on religion, but as well like in society as a whole in different aspects. And I think working or being exposed to a lot of emerging technologies as well, the idea of like, okay, how can that be integrated in society, what is the ethics behind it, but as well how do we want to live as society with each other and then with technology. And I think that all has kind of like some sort of like ideology of existence. And for a very big part of the population, that's either religion or, a lot of, I think religion in general has a lot of good intentions, maybe, like if you look at it not as rule giving, but I think all of it is just a way of life for people to live together. And that's something that really interested me. But I didn't just apply to Yale. I applied to other universities as well with the
Which
focus
ones?
of public policy and which ones? I applied this round. I applied for the University of Oxford for public policy and Harvard for Divinity.
Well, I'm sure that Harvard has some problems right now with international students.
Yes, I don't want to comment so much about that, but yes, and I got rejected. But in hindsight, I think it's better for now in this point of time that that Yale was the one.
But Yale
who
is still
accepted.
Ivy League, right?
Yale is Ivy League, yes. So Yale and Harvard have kind of this like ongoing rivalry with each other, tale as old as time.
I remember Obama was a Yale alumni.
I'm not sure if Obama, I think he and Michelle might be Harvard alums, but the Clintons are Yale alumni.
Can you maybe look it up, Leo?
Yeah.
Where if Obama studied in Yale or
the Clintons.
Harvard or the Clintons? I think I
Yeah.
heard something, but I'm not pretty sure
Maybe.
about it. But tell me, how did you get to Yale?
I think that I'd never explored the US. So coming from a Commonwealth country, we always think of the UK.
Obama was Harvard? Okay. Well, I'd say it's good to have some fact checking.
Yes. And we always think of the UK. My dad actually went to boarding school in the UK and studied in the UK. My mom studied in the UK as well. And so actually when I was 16, when I was about to finish high school, I had actually applied to Cambridge and I got rejected. When I was 21 and I finished my degree in Vienna, I also applied to Cambridge again and they rejected me again. And I think honestly that was the first lesson for me where I had to kind of first maybe real growing pain for me, kind of like accepting that rejection, because I think that for a long time it's really been a dream of mine to go to university. I think it's something that I expected of myself, and I think that not happening was very, very humbling. Like, and I think that I had to grow a lot, like emotionally, to be where I am today, but as well, yeah. And 9 years later, was that 9 years ago? Maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah.
8 years ago. And so, as I told you before, I applied for the University of Oxford this time, since I had tried Cambridge twice. And actually, through kind of my work at the Bold community, I've gained a lot more of global exposure, I would say. And I just started exploring more into it. And to be quite honest, I think that I'd never explored the US also because it's just enormously expensive. It's also nothing that I don't think that I know very well. But I did visit Harvard and MIT on vacation in October, just because a bold mind who's now a friend had a product launch in MIT, and I was like, okay, I'm never ever going to have a reason to go, and I'm never ever going to have a reason or time to go, or just to be able to decide. And I had a look at the Harvard campus, and I really thought, okay, like I would have to get a scholarship, like I would never be able to afford it ever, but also that's something that I would maybe like to try. And at that point in October, I was really just focused on public policy. I think that's just the master's that I've always imagined for myself, because I think things like organizational leadership, MBAs, personally, I think that that's something that I'm quite natural at, I think, and something that I believed that I could develop kind of by work experience, again, very personally. And public policy was just something that I am very interested in. I'm very interested in kind of like mobilizing society into doing something. And public policy was kind of the subject that I would imagine that I would have done in order to gain that knowledge. I was not thinking about divinity school at all. But I think going there and realizing that divinity school, obviously, like, it has a lot to do with like spiritual leadership and all of these, classical things that maybe the outside eye would see in religious leadership. Something that I realized when I went there is that the Americans see divinity school very, very differently than in Europe. And
what's the difference? How do we see them, and how do Americans see divinity schools?
I think also divinity schools, as it is, don't exist in Europe. It's something that I also don't think exists in Asia, nothing that I've seen before, which was why it was very eye-opening to me. I think people always think like theological study, and then they think seminary. And seminary is just for people who maybe, or for me, again, I'm not like an expert in the field yet, but that seminary is just, for people who want to become like religious leaders. And I think a very cliche maybe in Europe is like it's for people who just don't want to get married and like want to have rules and all of these types of things. Or in my circles, that's kind of the impression that I had gotten out of my faith-based circles, just like in society in general. And in my faith-based circles, it's obviously very different. It's people who are practicing something very vulnerably, which I have felt like in my generation at least, maybe it's a little bit missing. I think that we talk a lot about inclusion of like everyone, and also non-dominant religions in the society. So I think everything besides Christianity or Catholicism in Austria. And I think that for me, my perception, and again, it's just my perception, is that it was either like something that's very academic or something that is very traditional in that sense, tradition and culture, and maybe something that's like old, like expired, like doesn't fit into modern society. And then seminary, I don't know a lot about seminary, but I guess just something for people who maybe want to put themselves in this very old institution. But then when I went to the US and when I read a little bit more about it and, actually visited divinity school, I realized that it's a good mixture of both. So a Master's of Divinity is not only just like theological study. There are a lot of like leadership aspects to it as well. So it's like organizational leadership, public policy, public leadership. It's a lot about, okay, how do you advocate for your group of people? And in this case, it's a faith-based people. How do you, grow your people? Like a lot of things that I guess you would learn in management class, but just for a specific group of people. So actually a lot of people do like Yale School of Management, MBA and an MDiv, Masters of Divinity, or I recently read that there was a MDiv student who was like a nonprofit management student at this fellow, not student, at the Yale School of Management. And I think that was the thing that then finally like got me hooked, which was I want to mobilize people. I want to lead people. That's something that I've always wanted to do. And I think that it's very representative as well in the jobs that I've chosen so far and my aspirations. I think as a person who practices Christianity, a lot of it is because I want to lead by example. Like I don't think that I am or I don't want to ever be a very authoritarian leader. I want to be someone who inspires people and moves people and inspire them, for them to be moved and for them to want to act out of their own benefit and not for me or because I've told them to. And I think that that comes a lot from this idea of servant leadership. And for me, how I was taught leadership in a faith-based context has been a lot about servant leadership. It's a lot about how are you serving the people, how are you building community, how are you making sure that you have a healthy community, how do you make sure that you're not just there for your people, but you build up people to be there for other people and to have this multiplying effect. And I think then deciding to go to divinity school, first of all, has a lot to do with, personal interest of religion, as I said, as a practicing Christian. But as well, thinking of how can I bridge these two worlds that I exist in that are very dominant. So first of all, wanting to have public influence, not just for my influence, but I think wanting to help people and move people. And how, another part of my life, which is ingrained into my identity, influences the other. And I think the US, or how I saw a divinity school worked, that's actually how I applied, saying that I would love to be a policymaker for emerging technologies. I would love to see how interfaith institutions can work with each other in order to influence global ethics for radical ideologies. And that was something that I guess Yale loved, but as well is so much of who I am. And I didn't have to see them as two separate buckets anymore. I found an institution who would encourage how I would integrate those, how I integrate them in my personal life, but also how I can then use it to kind of influence society. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to. I think it's very different. Right now, it's just all that, again, has been lived through like the solo person of myself. But I'm very excited that there's an institution that thinks that is just as interesting and great as I do.
But it's interesting what you were saying about how people now, let's say, receive religion. I studied theater, film, and media here in Vienna. I attended a 3-month class. One of the classes was called Religion and Media, or Religion in the Media, and I was not aware, but because of not being a very religious person, I was not aware how different religions now work to reach the new audiences and new generations. And I've seen so many things, and I was not surprised by what you said, that many traditional methods have upgraded in a way because they wouldn't work anymore, especially for the new generations. And I saw, for example, dating apps personalized only for one specific religion. I saw that the Mormon families living in a farm now. It's that create content on social media. It's a thing. It was we were studying a case of a family that they had 8 children that were living in a farm, and there was this the mother working only in the farm and at home, while the father would go to work, and different things that you couldn't imagine 15, 20 years ago, not even 10 years ago, I think, because now that the content creation has become, has been finally taken seriously, let's say, that is the job. I was surprised to see, and I never thought about it. When you're not into it that much, you think about, okay, religion is disappearing, but it's not. It's just changing the channels. It does make sense for our generation that maybe you're not able to go to church every Sunday anymore because of the work environment has changed, because you might have other events or commitments, but you don't want to miss out on that. So maybe they put a live streaming, maybe they record it, maybe they do reels from that Sunday at church. So I was surprised, and at the same time, I was happy that people can still find their way into it, and whatever they believe in, it's not lost, but it's still there in a different way.
Yeah, I think. I think that practices can evolve. Like, I think, like in routines, as you say, but I think that something that I realize, or something that I always try to kind of communicate to people, that I think that faith and religion, it's not just kind of like a bunch of rules that someone thinks that they have to do in order to get into heaven, or what is right or wrong. I think that it's so important for us to see it as a vulnerable experience of existence for the person who believes in the ideology that they believe in. And I think that that's so important as well for me to keep an open mind when listening to people, because I think that we're, maybe without sounding too like esoteric, but I think if something that COVID has taught me is that people are, or at least for me, the circles that I'm in, not just like in my religious context, like people want to make a difference. Like, people want to be an impact. They want to be seen. They want to do something that they want their life to have meaning. Maybe that's the best way in putting it. And I think that, at least for me, like, I think faith practices, it has a lot to do with that. That I feel like it's very, it's not seen a lot, or it's maybe not understood that way. And so, yeah.
If you can share, and if you remember, when did this start for you? When did you become? Is it a family thing? You were raised like this, or?
Yes and no. And so I was raised in a Christian family, but I believe that, everybody has to choose at a specific point. They have to choose if it's for them, or if it's not for them. And I think that I chose very early on. I don't think that I ever question existence. I think that a lot of my questions have a lot to do with maybe what is really right or wrong, or acceptance, or how people in that community are accepting people who are not like them, but also otherwise how people outside of that community are accepting that community. Those, I think, are the questions that I've had. And I think that I decided somewhere during COVID that what my people, or not just, my people, but like people within the Christian community, that there is so much there that the world needs to see, in terms of, I mean, first of all, obviously we believe the gospel, but second of all as well, like, I think within the four walls of our community, or our church, or like the global church, or, just broadly speaking, there's so many kind of values that I think make me a better person in society, living with other people. And I think that that's the part of religion that I hope people see. Maybe not religion, but faith. I think that religious institutions, from what I see and what I read from the secular world, it's very like, it's, or maybe it's just my bad perception of it, of how, people need to adhere to all of this, and this is like a practice of restriction, instead of seeing it as a way of living in community with each other, and in community with, in one with God, type of thing. And so I think for me, it's also like a journey, like, it's not just like you decide once and that's it. Like, it is a decision every day. And I think that's the most important part of it. It's that you're not jailed to it. It is just like any other relationship. You have to choose if it's not if it's right for you, but maybe also like decide if it's right for you every single day. And yeah.
Do you think your life would have been different if you were not religious? Do you ever think of that? Or?
Yes. Yeah, I think obviously because I believe, in God and Jesus and all of these type of things, and that I was raised to believe that he has everything under control. I do think so. Like, I don't think that Vienna was ever on our radar, ever. And I don't think that that would have happened if I didn't believe that that's what God had planned for me. I don't think that I was a particularly, like, I think now looking back that I was musical more than any other person. Like, my mom used to say that I used to sing My Fair Lady. I don't know if you guys have ever watched My Fair Lady with Audrey Hepburn, but I used to sing Audrey Hepburn before I could even speak.
I only watched Breakfast at Tiffany.
Okay. My Fair Lady is a good one. And The Sound of Music, obviously Austria, but there's this scene like at the ball where the kids like sing before they go to bed. And the littlest daughter, Greta, I think she's also a fictional character. I don't think that they actually had Greta in real life. But before she goes to bed, she sings goodnight on the steps of the palace. And she sleeps on she sleeps on the stairs, and like her siblings carry her to bed. And my mom said, like, before I was one, like, I refused to sleep in bed. Like, I would fall asleep on the stairs because I loved like the musical so much. And then my parents had to carry me to bed. So now, like, in hindsight, I do think that I had a lot of like musical elements. I just think that in Asia, musical elements is very much based on like grade and like how well you are technically. But anyways, like, that long story short, I don't think that singing, for instance, would have been an outlet that I would have thought when I was younger to bring me here. I thought that it would just be, academics. Maybe it's a very Asian thing. And even Yale, like, or even maybe the past 8 years. Like, I think I'd mentioned, like, I applied to Cambridge, and that was for me like a very like growing pain process of once the first thing is like maybe experiencing rejection, but the second thing as well, like, how do I look at myself in the mirror, and how do I look at myself knowing that this is what I expected of me and it's not what had happened, and letting go and realizing that I'm still worthy as well in a way, but as well like my life can still go on. And kind of that I see it really as an 8-year journey of learning that. And I think that if I wasn't a religious person, maybe that perspective would not be as prevalent as it is to me now.
Now that you mentioned The Sound of Music, do you enjoy in a different way, or do you particularly enjoy musicals?
Yes. Oh goodness, yes. I love, like, right now in New York, I was kind of really mad because Yale's actually really close to New York. And my favorite musical singer is Jonathan Groff. I don't know if you know him. He was in Glee. And he also, if you've watched Hamilton, listen to Hamilton. He's the guy who plays King George. He's fantastic. And he is right now on a Broadway musical with someone from my favorite band, Lawrence. Her name's Gracie Lawrence. She's not really known. I went to 2 of their concerts last year in Rotterdam and in Munich, and I guess their crowd is about like 2,000, 3,000 people. It's not huge, but they're in a Broadway musical together. And obviously I was kicking myself because their musical was supposed to end at the end of July, and I only moved to the East Coast in the first half of August, but now they're extending, and so I will definitely
You're lucky.
Yeah.
What's the name of the musical?
It's Just in Time. It's an autobiography.
Is Just in Time?
Just in Time.
So it's not a person
no.
named Justin, and it's
No.
time.
It's Just in Time.
Okay.
And it's of it's an autobiography of the singer. I can't remember his name, but Gracie Lawrence, she plays Connie Francis. She sings the viral song on Instagram right now that goes like, "Pretty little lady, I don't know if you know it or if that's in your. It's
I'm
like
missing out a lot of things.
It's a viral like Instagram song right now, and she plays that character. It's I hope I get to see it.
You think you're gonna get back to music when you go to the US?
Yes, yeah. I already.
What's the plan?
Well, I'm allowed to, as I said, I am allowed to take around 50%, maybe 40% in whatever my heart desires when I get there. And so a very big plan is obviously like some management courses in maybe emerging technologies, public policy, but also I want to get lessons with professors at the Music Institute. And I will still have to audition in order for professors to want me. And I haven't sang in a very, very long time. But my hope is that one of them, or the ones that I want to work with, will want to work with me as well.
Where is Yale?
It is in New Haven, so it's about an hour and a half from New York by
What's
train.
the state?
Connecticut. So it's in New England.
Well, I think it's a perfect fit for your belief in New Haven. It's
Yeah. I never thought about it that way. Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be
excited.
fun. How long are you going to be there for? How long is the master's?
For
2
3
years?
years.
3 years?
Yes.
Why is it so long?
Because it's a practical degree. So if I did, for instance, a Master of Theology, it would be 2 years, but a Master of Divinity has all of these like leadership aspects to it. And so it's a practical degree.
What's going to happen here, the Federal Chamber of Commerce?
When I
someone
leave,
else will take your place?
Yes. They will miss me, I hope. But yes.
Well, I
will be
saw on your
replaced.
link that people are already commenting that they will miss working with you there.
Oh, yeah. I hope so. I really enjoyed working with everyone there. I think that's also another thing. I think like being an immigrant, I never thought that I would work at kind of a governmental agency. I remember my first day, because I used to work at Teach for Austria, so it's it's a lot more diverse because we work with such diverse kids. And the first day I went to the Chamber of Commerce, I think there was only one other Asian person there, and there was no one with like a headscarf. And I remember not realizing that and 2 years later I think that it's way more diverse. Like I am not the only Asian person there anymore. There's a lot more diversity. There's a lot more younger people. There's a lot more different types of people. And I think that it's honestly it was such an honor also to understand and to talk and work with important people.
What are some things that you want to do before you go to the US until August? I mean, it's, as you said, a couple of months now.
Mm-hmm. So I have a couple weeks left, actually. Things that I want to do. I think most of the things that I want to do is I do so much better in like one-on-one. And so I think that what I'm on a mission on is really seeing the people who are important to me kind of one-on-one and having those like deep conversations of where we're at. I think life is so busy. And so I don't see my friends as often as I hope to, but
you also want to have some good food as long as you can.
Yeah. I do. I think good desserts, I think, for me, because I think the Americans do cakes very well, but I would like to argue that we do like baked goods better here in Europe. So I think for me, like the baked goods list is something that I want to check out. So things like öffer, things like paremi, like I do want to have like
which one is like paremi?
It's in the first. They do like it's like a Parisian. They do like little tartlets as well. It's close to Wolzeile.
Never seen it.
It's amazing.
I should check it out.
It's really good. They have really good croissants.
Also this one in the 9th, Le Mercerie.
Yes, that's really good as well.
Yeah. You should get some of these things before you leave.
Yes, for sure.
And you have already arranged accommodation and everything?
Yes, I will be living on campus.
Nice.
So, real campus life in comparison to the University of Vienna.
Yeah. There's not much of a campus life here. The only university life is when you're in classes and between classes, I think.
Yeah, and I think that you need to be really proactive in making friends. It's not self-explanatory.
Yes.
But yeah.
I'm sure you're gonna feel a huge difference in the ways that the studies are either conducted or. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but it's just different, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. An American system is also something that I've experienced the British system, the Austrian system, 1 year of the Chinese system, but never like the American system. So I'm very curious and excited to experience that as well.
What about back home? Are your parents still there?
Yes, so my parents are there, my grandparents are there. I try to go home twice a year. I'm actually trying to go home for 10 days before
How
before I
far is
move
it
from the
from
US.
here?
It's about a 16-hour flight. Yes.
With one transit, I'm assuming.
Yes. So either in Turkey or in the Middle East or in Bangkok.
And what is it like there?
I mean, I come from the city, and so I think just like Vienna in Austria, the city is kind of different from everything else. But I think it's so diverse. I think why I do so well in international context is because Kuala Lumpur in itself is so diverse. Like it's, I think, ranked like the #1 expat city in the world or something crazy like that.
I think I heard that that's where expats feel most welcome.
Yeah, and I think within itself as well. I think yeah, like I think there's so much food. People are just way nicer, if I can say. I think that, like politics in every country is a difficult subject, especially if religion is involved. But I think between the people itself, like if you eliminate that, I think that there is a lot of shared respect. I mean, I think it depends in which political cycle we're in and all of these things with all societies. But I think there's just so much to see. And in every not just like in every city or in every state, but even in every district, there's like something different to eat that's like only from like that village over there. And so I think that's something that I really miss about Malaysia is that everywhere or every time I go back, which is basically every 6 months or like, in August and then in December, my parents like always have something new to show me, or my grandparents always have something, or my grandma has like some sort of e-commerce stuff that she wants to show me that like doesn't even exist here yet. And there's so much access to everything. Like there are foods from all over the world. It's done beautifully. Like you can even get really good French pastries in Kuala Lumpur as well.
What is
so yeah.
the language you use there?
So the official language of Malaysia is actually Bahasa. So it's the same as Indonesia. But I speak English at home as well as do I think most of the population in Kuala Lumpur because before we were actually British ruled. So my grandparents went to school in English. My parents partially went to school in English because they experienced kind of like the switch. So a lot of households actually speak English and majority of the population to each other. I think now it's a little bit different. You can actually see the difference the past 12 years from when I was living at home until now because I think it's just been 12 years more of a more institutionalized language. But when I was growing up, everybody spoke English to each other also because we have 114 living languages.
What?
114 living languages in a very small country. And so
Can
English
you
is...
explain that? What do you mean?
Well, we have the Borneo. So, you have a lot of like indigenous languages in itself. Then you have very different Chinese dialects as well, because depending on which ports and why people came to Malaysia or from which entry they came from, like for instance, different parts of China, and so you have like a specific dialect that's spoken in like Singapore and like all of the port areas. And then there's also like the Portuguese occupied area of Malaysia where my grandma's from, where their food's also completely different. And then you have, East and West Malaysia. And then you have like the Indian population that bring in Tamil, they bring in Hindi, they bring in, other dialects as well. And so there are just many, many different dialects that are spoken within each other. And it's not like in German where it's the same, but it's just spoken different. It's really like basically a completely different language. So even in Kuala Lumpur, we speak Cantonese. But if you would drive up 3 hours to maybe like Penang, which is like a port city, they speak Hokkien, for instance, which is like a completely different like Chinese dialect. Yeah.
You know so little about that area of the world. I wish we could travel a little bit more. over there as well.
Yeah.
The only thing I've known for my whole life about Malaysia is Sandokan. Do you remember cartoon?
Yeah.
But that was a good one. It was one of my favorites somehow.
It's good, but I think we are actually doing pretty well in like the Asian American celebrity scene. So like I don't know if you know the comedian Ronnie Chang. He's like best friends with he's Malaysian. Obviously like Michelle Yeoh, everybody knows her.
The one from Past Lives?
I don't know. Actually, she's like in the new Marvel stuff, and she was in Wicked as well.
Is the one that was in Everywhere?
Yes,
Everything
exactly.
Everywhere All at Once.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's
She won an
Malaysian.
Oscar, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She's amazing. She is Malaysian. Henry Golding, he played like the guy in Crazy Rich Asians, but he's also been in a bunch of stuff. He was in a Simple Favor with Blake Lively. He's also Malaysian, and so I feel like we're getting, I think, kind of like in the arts scene.
What's the country's population, pretty much?
Oh, please, everybody asks me that question. I have no idea.
But like we're talking about 5 million, 20,
no,
50?
Like 50, yeah.
50 million?
I think so.
Okay.
But
we're in the same.
That. Yeah.
Leo, can you maybe help us check how many people live in Malaysia, or what's the population?
I think it might be 50.
Is it one of those countries where most Malaysians are in Malaysia or abroad?
No, it's not like the Philippines. I think I would say most of them are in Malaysia.
Oh, that's why it's a big country. Where I come from, it's only 1/3 of people live in my country. Most of them are abroad. 35 million.
Okay. 35 million, not 50 million. 35 million.
It's quite a big country still.
It's not as big as Indonesia, which is like right next to us. But it is, it's enough to have a lot of diversity, I think.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you again for being here today. And you have no idea how much luck I wish you or in Yale.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Best of luck and congratulations again. Not everyone can get that. Especially you came from a different country, you lived in a different country, and then now you're moving again. Just the idea of dropping everything again and starting all over. I think only our audience understands that. I think I was telling a friend, like, I feel so ready and that it's nothing to me, but I forget that it has been 12 years since I've done that. And so I have really huge respect, especially doing it as an adult with taxes and all of these things. So if you guys have just done it, really, really big, like, chapeau. It is, not easy. I'm sure it's very, to me at least, it's a very inspirational journey. I'm glad you shared it with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.